Priscilla is on our team, and she assists with grading especially, but you will also hear her. When we do our sessions, live sessions, she assists and she does the massage, she does the hydrotherapy. So she's part and parcel of the team. And Priscilla, we just want to welcome you. Just say a word of two.
Thank you. It's great to be part of the team. I've already enjoyed grading some of the assignments that have come through. So keep it up. You guys are doing well. Don't be discouraged, rather be encouraged and continue. Otherwise, I won't have anything to do. But please, I want to see all your assignments. So it's good to be with you all.
Great. Thank you much. That was Priscilla. You will hear from her more and more. She's very good. She's very kind in her grading and also very firm. And so I think you will hear from her. Then we have also, unfortunately, she's not on tonight. Nomfundo is our administrative person that helps us with administration. She is unfortunately not here, but she is somebody that may call you from time to time to check up on you, administrative parts, registration part, right? So that is Nomfundo. Is there anybody else that has come on board? Christopher, there we go. Welcome, Christopher. Good to have you on board, my man. Welcome. And then we have May. Welcome, May.
Thank you.
Right, May, everybody, you know her. Besides her being my wife, she is also one of our facilitators in our medical missionary training. And then Lynette. Lovely, Lynette. I'm just going to, for a second, unmute you. Just say hi to everyone, Lynette. All right, Lynette, we still cannot hear you. I think there may be something the matter with your audio. Please check it out. We will come back later to hear from you. Okay, Christopher, later we will give you an opportunity. I see a hand there. Blessing. I'm trying to unmute Blessing, but I'm not successful. I don't know why.
She might be having problems with the network, Pastor.
All right, Don, you can have a chat with her. Maybe Blessing, if you can hear me, please chat with us. Just drop a note in the chat. I've opened it so everyone can see. Lynette, I see you loud and clear, Lynette. Let me see who else is there. Esther. Esther's disappeared. I see Esther's screen, but I don't see a face. All right. Okay. Tonight we are going to have a close look at the cardiovascular system. The last time that we were online, it was the digestive system. Tonight it's going to be the cardiovascular system. Dr. Bruce is going to be speaking to us for about 15 minutes. And after that, we will entertain questions. Your questions can be on the cardiovascular system, but also on any other module that we may have done, or any other information that you need clarity on as far as our medical missionary training course, the material, right? You've maybe dealt with somebody and you were not sure how to, what to. So whatever questions there are, feel free after Dr. Bruce's presentation to ask your questions. Right. Right now, I want to welcome Dr. Bruce. He will take over from now for the next 15 minutes. Thank you.
Thanks, Pastor Isaac. I'm just going to change my presentation here.
Great.
Can you see it?
Not yet.
Oh, wait a minute. Just a sec.
All right, there we go. Great.
Can you see that?
Yes.
All right, welcome everybody. Can you hear me?
Yes.
All right. I don't know how many.
Just give us a thumb. Just give us a thumb up if you can hear Dr. Bruce.
Great. I hope you all can hear me. I'm glad to be with you tonight, and this is a very important system. If you're looking at the lifestyle diseases, there's a few that are as greatly impacted on by poor lifestyle choices as the cardiovascular system. So it's a very, very important system. I'm going to fly through it. 15 minutes is a tall order for the cardiovascular system. Very tall order, but there we go. So that's a picture of the vasculature. This is by that German anatomist Punter, that guy that does the bodywork stuff. So all the tissues dissolve except what's inside the blood vessels. So that's the cardiovascular system. We have about 100,000 kilometers of blood vessels in the body. So the cardiovascular system is comprised of the heart and all the blood vessels that circulate throughout the system. That's a picture of the base of the brain showing some of the arteries that encircle the base of the brain. The main blood supply to the brain there's two circulations. There's the front circulation and then there's the posterior circulation. And those two meet at a thing called the circle of Willis at the base of the brain and supply the brain from the heart, bringing oxygenated blood from the heart. That's a picture showing an abdominal X-ray, which shows, you'll see there's a little bit of a calcification type shadowing there on that picture. And that shows what happens very much if you quite commonly, if one doesn't look after the cardiovascular system, that's an abdominal aortic aneurysm. So on the X-ray, you can actually see that calcium you're seeing is the calcification in the wall of the artery. And we'll see as we go along that calcification in our arteries is one of the bad things that can happen to the cardiovascular system and is a precursor of things like heart attacks and strokes. There's a saying that says when we age, we burn up, we swell up, we dry out, and we turn stone. So poor lifestyle choices tend to do that to our cardiovascular system. We burn up, we become inflamed, we swell up, we get edematous and fluids moving into different compartments of the body where they don't belong. We dry out, we dehydrate, and we calcify, turn to stone.
Hey, you're not very kind to us, eh?
Right, so that's the heart. And it's useful, if you want to see if you understand the cardiovascular system, it's useful to see if you can trace a red blood cell from the right atrium all the way back to the right atrium throughout the body. And so that's a useful way to see if you have a good understanding of the anatomy of the cardiovascular system. The heart has got 4 chambers, as most people know. It's got a right heart and a left heart. The right heart pumps to the pulmonary circulation or to the lungs. The left heart pumps to the systemic circulation or to the rest of the body. The right heart is sending all of the oxygenated blood to the lungs for oxygenation. The left heart is receiving that oxygenated blood from the lungs via the left atrium and the left ventricle, sending it to the rest of your body. And they're separated by a series of valves. That's just showing that the output of the heart, the cardiac output, is related to our heart rate and the stroke volume. So for every beat of the heart, the left ventricle pumps a certain amount of blood. And the more blood your left ventricle pumps with each beat, the greater your stroke volume and the more strong your heart is. So you'll see that your cardiac output can be increased by either increasing your heart rate, like when you go for a run, or increasing the amount of blood pumped with each contraction. And your blood pressure is a product of the cardiac output and total peripheral resistance, which is all the resistance comprised by, or that's formed by the vascular system. So all the composite resistance that the blood vessels form is called the total peripheral resistance. And those two factors, how much your heart is pumping out, multiplied by the total resistance against which it's pumping, determine your blood pressure. So a healthy heart has an ejection fraction up in the 60s and 70s. That means that a large portion of, so whenever a heart pumps, some of the portion of that heart falls back into the left ventricle. The greater the proportion that's falling back into the left ventricle, the smaller the ejection fraction and the weaker that heart. So if you've had a heart attack involving the left ventricle, your ejection fraction is going to drop. But that's technical. It's just to give you some information that's interesting. The structure of a blood vessel. So blood vessels consist of 3 layers. There's what we call the inner layer, the middle layer, and the outer layer, or the tunica intima, the tunica media, and the tunica adventitia. The tunica media consists of muscle layer, and that's very important in controlling the state of dilation or contraction of the blood vessel, which is under hormonal influence and also under adrenaline influence. Veins are what we call capacitance vessels. They can be distensible quite a bit, so they tend to not have as much muscle in them. So we all know that arteries become arterioles, which become ultimately capillaries, which then become venules. Once they've given off their oxygen, which then become veins, and that goes back to the heart. So whenever you're looking at an organ that's receiving arterial supply, which is breaking down into small capillaries, it's diffusing the oxygen, taking the waste products, going back into venules, and then veins and back to the heart. So that's the basic structure of it. Very important is that inner lining. And we're looking at cardiovascular disease tonight. Inner lining is called the tunica intima. It's made up of a single layer of cells called endothelial cells. Very important to understand that it's been said that our health depends to a far greater degree on the health of our vascular endothelium than any other single factor. So if your blood vessel inner lining, the endothelial layer, is healthy, you're in a good state to be healthy yourself. And so all the lifestyle things that tend to be damaging for our health, most of them tend to damage the endothelium. Blood pressure, blood sugar, high fat diets, free radical stress. We're going to look at some of that tonight. So we need to keep our endothelium in a healthy state. We need to keep our blood vessels distensibly. So previously, this tunica intima, or the endothelial layer, the inner lining of the blood vessel, was considered to be inert. But in the 90s, three scientists were given the Nobel Prize for discovering that the endothelium produces a gas called nitric oxide. Nitric oxide is released by healthy endothelium. So a healthy endothelium releases healthy amounts of nitric oxide. And nitric oxide causes vasodilation, causes the blood vessel to dilate. So if you consider that the endothelium is making nitric oxide, it's now considered to be one of the largest secreting organs in the body, the vascular endothelium. That's a little formula for nitric oxide. So what factors affect our endothelial health? This is very important to understand. If you look at cardiovascular disease, the two main processes that you were studying were arteriosclerosis and atherosclerosis. Arteriosclerosis is generalized hardening of the artery. Atherosclerosis is a subtype of arteriosclerosis where there's fat deposited on the artery wall. So as we age, through a whole host of factors, our arteries tend to get harder and less distensible. But in addition to that, a separate subform of that hardening is when atheroma gets deposited on the blood vessel lining. And what's important for you to understand is that that process is preceded by endothelial damage. So anything that damages the vascular endothelium is a precursor to cardiovascular disease. So if you want to avoid cardiovascular disease, you want to control all the factors that damage or that form the initiating stimulus of injury or damage to the vascular endothelium. So that we're talking about oxidative stress, things like smoking, anything that generates a lot of free radicals is going to damage the endothelium. Bad fats, stress, insufficient or obstructed sleep, chronic bacterial infections, low vitamin D levels, hypertension, high blood sugar. These things damage the vascular endothelium. And once that endothelium is damaged, then the body deposits cholesterol inside of that vessel wall. And then white cells come along, white cells called macrophages. They try and engulf this cholesterol that's been deposited on the damage. They form what's called foam cells. And then this thing forms a plaque, which becomes calcified. And this is the pathophysiology of coronary artery disease. Endothelial damage followed by plaque, cholesterol deposition, macrophage activation, plaque stabilization with calcium, and ultimately plaque rupture. I've got a very nice little video on what that looks like at the blood vessel level, but it's about 9 minutes long, so that perhaps another time I can show you. So being a couch potato damages your endothelium. Using your finger for the remote more often than for exercise. Factors affecting endothelial health, low vitamin B12, that's important. In plant-based eaters, something you must understand. So initially we were supposed to get our B12 from bacteria. All B12 comes from bacteria. No animal makes B12. The fact that animals provide B12 is the fact that they're taken in a bacterial form in one shape or another. And so we initially were gardeners, we worked in the land, we would pick up the carrot, dust it on our knee and eat it. And in so doing, get bacteria that make B12. Modern day life has become very unnatural. And so we must be certain that our people we work with are getting enough B12. The diet they have to be on is a plant-based diet if you want to heal. But in the 21st century living, you want to make sure that they're getting enough B12. It's one of those vitamins you must check up on. Because if it's low, Yes.
Does a plant-based diet provide the vitamin B12 need that I have?
No, it doesn't per se. It's B12 is in a lot of fortified foods these days. A lot of soy milk is containing B12. They've put it everywhere because of the dangers of deficiency. But B12 is found in bacteria. So if you have the right bacteria in your gut, if you're eating the bacteria that make you could potentially recycle B12. But B12 is a big subject. It takes a long time to develop a B12 deficiency. It's just one of those vitamins you need to look out for, that you're maintaining a sufficiency of when you're on a plant-based diet, especially. And the reason being is that if your B12 is low, it can elevate your homocysteine. Homocysteine damages, in the context of the cardiovascular system, it damages the endothelium quite severely when your homocysteine goes up. And so you'll often find, if one of the good surrogate markers of B12 status in a plant-based eater or anybody is their homocysteine level, because adequate B12 helps to cycle your homocysteine. So the plant-based diet is what we're made to eat, it's what we should be eating, but because of modern day living, we're not getting the amount of bacteria necessarily that we always would. So just as a fail-safe, every now and then, 6 months to a year, one should check your B12 status. And the recommendation is that you take about 2,000 micrograms of B12 a week, which is about 100, well, roughly about 100 micrograms, they say, or roughly about 100 micrograms a day. But if you take a once a week sublingual B12 supplement, or you're eating fortified foods, it should be fine. But that's a big subject and one must keep it in mind.
All right.
Hyperglycemia, high blood sugar can, in fact, I've watched some very good research on that. There were some guys that, Michael Grieger, most of you know Michael Grieger, he looked at some research as to why sometimes plant-based eaters had similar mortality rates to non-plant-based eaters, which people on animal products. And one of the reasons they found was because they weren't always watching their B12. And the lack of B12 can increase your age of mortality to a similar level as a non-plant-based eater if you're not watching your B12 because of the homocysteine elevation.
Sure.
So that was interesting. And then hyperglycemia, high blood sugar swings. Any type of diet that precipitates a lot of blood sugar fluctuation can damage your endothelium and also be a precursor of this process that we're talking about. Being sedentary, especially lack of cardiovascular exercise. We were made to move, and movement is medicine, and most of us struggle to get enough exercise, but being sedentary damages our cardiovascular system. Laughter, as I said, laughter is good for the cardiovascular system, in fact, and mild running. We'll talk about degrees of cardiovascular exercise if we have a moment. How do we restore our endothelial health and therefore mitigate our risk of cardiovascular disease? We need to do daily moderate exercise. Stress reduction, optimize our liver function. Milk thistle has been shown to protect the vascular endothelium. So taking some milk thistle is a good idea. Optimize our vitamin D levels, laughter. The studies show that healthy men and women who were shown a funny movie increased blood flow by 22% and improved vascular, and it takes a lot, 35 minutes after the movie had finished. It doesn't have to be a movie, it can be funny, but good laugh can be good for your cardiovascular system. Antioxidants, a plant-based diet is rich in antioxidants, lots of colors, and that's brilliant for the cardiovascular system because that free radical stress is a big part of what's damaging the endothelium, like I said just now. So antioxidants, vitamin A, vitamin C, vitamin E, flavonoids, quercetin, healthy proteins, magnesium, zinc, and calcium all help to preserve your vascular endothelial health. So that's the kind of diet we want. You'll notice there's nothing from an animal there. And this talk is not about cancer, but I've been studying a lot about the link between dietary products and cancer and saturated fat and cancer. We must do a talk on that sometime. We were not made to eat products. Our system's dying because people, everywhere around me, people are getting cancer. The diagnosis you hear is cancer, cancer, cancer. That's what we're putting in.
So true.
Curcumin, ginkgo, and garlic, bromelain, these things all have, some of these, like bromelain, have anti-inflammatory properties, which are good for the vascular endothelium. Avoid white flour and sugar, eat high-fiber foods, avoid all processed junk foods, increase your omega-3 fats. And that was something that was quite important in previous research as well. Is if we don't get, as plant-based eaters, if we're not getting enough alpha-linolenic acid, enough of the plant-based essential omega-3s, we also increase our cardiovascular risk because they found that, and we're going to see it now. What's my time doing, Pastor Isaac?
Right, maybe another 3 minutes or so. Our meeting will end in 10 minutes, so we would like to have some questions.
Inflammation is a key part of having a heart attack. It's inflamed, oxidized cholesterol that is involved in the heart attack and cardiovascular risk. The anti-inflammatory omega-3s are a big part of settling that process down. If we don't have enough anti-inflammatory essential fatty acids versus pro-inflammatory essential fatty acids, we can increase our cardiovascular risk. So it's important to get that ground flaxseed, those ground walnuts, those ground chia seeds every day, 2 large tablespoons. You want that on your porridge because they really decrease our cardiovascular risk. Look, that stuff is made to polish the floor, never made to be eaten. Margarine, hydrogenated fats, very damaging to the cardiovascular system. Try not to eat 3 hours before bed. Use soy foods such as soy milk, edamame, soy nuts, tempeh, and tofu, which can help lower cholesterol. 8 to 10 servings of colorful fruits and veg a day contain all the things we need to protect our cardiovascular system. 30 to 45 minutes of cardiovascular exercise. So that's atherosclerosis. We see that the fat gets built up on the artery wall, and we see a narrowing there. If the plaque is stable and just causes a stenosis or narrowing, that can cause what's called stable angina if it's affecting the heart. So the same disease process is affecting the heart as what is affecting the brain. Cardiovascular, the effect on the blood vessel is the same. But if that plaque is stable, it's just a narrowing, you're going to get stable angina, so you're going to get effective exertion. If it's affecting the blood vessel to your leg, you're going to get intermittent claudication. That's a part of peripheral vascular disease, which you also study. Intermittent claudication. So some people get pain in the buttock if they've got peripheral vascular disease, pain in just a little bit, if there's ischemic pain. Blood pressure is part of the damaging process. High blood sugar, that's peripheral vascular disease. So vascular inflammation, it's not just cholesterol that's a problem. It's inflamed oxidized cholesterol. So we need to limit the factors that cause inflammation. We need to get off pro-inflammatory diets. We need to be on an anti-inflammatory diet, which is a plant-based diet. And even plant-based diets can be pro-inflammatory if you're not careful of the composition. Lots of gluten for some people is going to be a problem. Lots of omega-6s, sunflower oils, that can be pro-inflammatory. We need to be on an anti-inflammatory diet if we want to mitigate our cardiovascular risk. So that's the process I was talking about just now. You get that plaque which becomes calcified. With time, if that calcium builds up, that plaque can rupture. Blood platelets come along. They try and catch up the wall that's been damaged, and that causes a heart attack. So depending on the degree, it can be a partial degree, which can cause a syndrome called unstable angina. If it's complete, it causes total death of the heart muscle, that's called a myocardial infarction. Started with endothelial damage.
Dr. Bruce, I know you would like to continue, but we have 7 minutes left, and I would like our team, our guys, to have an opportunity to just pose some questions regarding cardiovascular or any other question that you may have. It will be quick for you to just type your questions in so that we can deal with them instead of unmuting you. Just type your questions so they can come in all at the same time, and then we can deal with those questions.
I'm just trying to get back to where I see everybody as well. Yeah.
Probably needs to end the share.
New share. New share. All right, I can see you, Don. It's fine. I just don't know if I can see the questions.
You can.
All right, there's a question. Can we get a recording of this webinar? Definitely, we'll be able to get a recording of the webinar. It will be on YouTube. And fortunately, it doesn't take too much of data. Is there an injection given for B12? Is it true that there is one that can cater for a 6-month period, Dr. Bruce?
There may well be a depot form. I'd have to check to see if exactly can last 6 months. But yes, there is an injectable form. When it comes to taking B12, one wants to look at the form of the B12 as well. The best form to take, one of the best forms is that we get in South Africa is methyl B12. You don't want to be taking cyanocobalamin, which is the one type of B12. The amount of cyanide that it releases, they say, is extremely small, but cyanide is still toxic, so it's preferable to get a form that has methyl B12 in it. So that's something to bear in mind. But yes, you can get injectable forms. obviously, if you take an injectable form, it obviates the absorption route. If you take it orally, B12 absorption is quite complex. If your gut is healthy, you're going to have no problems absorbing it. It needs to be bound to a factor in the stomach called intrinsic factor, which is then absorbed in the terminal ileum, the end part of the small intestine. So if your gut is healthy, you can absorb oral B12, but if there's any gut disturbances, it's never a bad idea to take injectable form, but I prefer oral route wherever possible.
All right. So oral is fine, injection is fine, as long as we get our B12 levels to where it's supposed to be. Right, more questions?
And one doesn't want to become concerned about B12. It's something you must just keep an eye on because it's in a lot of 45 vegetarian foods at the moment. So that you must keep an eye on it.
Right, there's another question. Kindly elaborate on the sources of B12 for someone on a plant-based diet. I missed that part because of my bad network. Confirm that a plant-based diet does not supply sufficient levels of B12.
No, it doesn't, unless you're getting the bacteria associated with the food. You probably, over time, will increase risk of B12, especially in today's modern society where there's a lot of sterilization. If your gut technically was very healthy and had all the right bacteria, then your B12 sufficiency would come from that. But because of the injunction is given because of the dangers of B12 deficiency, the B12 deficiency can affect your brain and spinal cord, can affect your blood, can affect your cardiovascular system. So because of the seriousness of it, it's just one of those things to keep on, just because you are at increased risk because we don't have the same degree of bacteria as we used to have.
All right, sources, best sources of B12 from a plant-based diet?
Well, unless it's a fortified product with bacteria, you probably wouldn't get it necessarily from the plants itself.
All right.
So to bear in mind that the liver can store B12 for up to a year. So, small amounts get stored in the liver. So it does circulate, it is retained. It just makes sense in a plant-based diet, especially, but for everybody, to keep on your B12 between every 6 months to a year, especially if you've had a deficiency.
All right.
And current deficiency, if you're not taking products like soy milk that are fortified with B12, some of them, if you're not taking a supplement, or, if you're at risk, just take a supplement. And as I said, about 100 micrograms a day is enough.
Right, there's a question there. Are they privy to get the PowerPoint presentation that was used tonight?
Sure, yeah, I don't mind that at all.
All right, we will get it to you. We have 2 minutes, 20 seconds left. I notice lack or good quality of sleep also increases the risk. I get very little and bad quality sleep. How can sleep be improved?
Well,
big question for 2 minutes.
You have to prioritize. Sleep has to become a priority, and people say they're too busy to sleep. Well, that's a problem. Rather get to bed early, get to bed 8, 9 o'clock latest, and get up early if you have to. There's still 24 hours in a day. But firstly, you have to choose to prioritize sleep. You have to create an environment conducive to sleep, watching for bright lights at night, having a relaxing time before bed, a bedtime routine, making sure there's no untreated anxiety or depression, because these things affect your sleep quality, making sure your brain is firing on all cylinders with a balanced neurotransmitter system. Without that, you're not going to sleep well.
All right. Okay. We probably are going to be cut off very soon. We have about 10 seconds. Please forward me your questions by email, and we will still entertain your questions, not tonight, but you can forward your questions whenever, and we will then still be in touch with you. We will let you know when we'll have our next Zoom Live. And thank you so much for signing in. As we said, we only have 40 minutes allocated. So our time is basically up, but we will be in touch with you about our next Zoom session. And please remember, submit your questions. Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you for coming on. And we will be in touch with you again to let you know. Thank you. God bless.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you, Dr. Bruce. Thank you, everyone.